reboot of his coronavirus task force briefings. I'm Alan Piper, NowThis senior politics producer. I'm supported by our news and politics teams. We are all working from home, so apologies in advance if there are any technical issues or if one of my cats makes an unexpected appearance yet again. Again, if you're just tuning in, I am NowThis senior politics producer, Alan Piper. We are expecting the President of the United States at any moment. In the meantime, I'd like to try to use this time to answer some of your questions. So if you're watching on Facebook, please type your questions in the comments, and if you are watching on Twitter, you can tweet them directly at me at apiper13. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we will do the best we can, and as I said, we are expecting the President of the United States at any moment. I have we got a bit of a hint of what is coming. I just saw on the monitors that President Trump is going to celebrate the 33rd use of the Defense Production Act. This is a rather startling claim. The New York Times has reported that he has invoked the Defense Production Act literally hundreds of times to get things that he wants militarily, but he has actually been extremely slow in implementing the Defense Production Act to get PPE, to get medical equipment, to get supplies. And it is because of this that we are once again back in a situation where there are insufficient supplies in hospitals and where there is a backlog on tests. So we'll get more into the Defense Production Act in a moment. I also want to share with you a breaking headline from the Associated Press. Again, this is a breaking piece of information, so I don't have a full story for you on this, but the AP reports that Russian intelligence officers are using a trio of English-language websites to spread disinformation on coronavirus and other topics, a U.S. government official tells the AP. Now, Russian intelligence are not the only ones spreading misinformation or disinformation regarding the coronavirus. President Trump went on a late-night tweet storm last night. After 11 p.m., he retweeted over a dozen tweets of wild conspiracy theories regarding hydroxychloroquine. The tweets focused to some extent on attacking Dr. Anthony Fauci. One of them accused Fauci of intentionally working to suppress hydroxychloroquine so that he could aid Democrats in having more Americans die. Again, this is a baseless claim. The FDA has found that hydroxychloroquine poses more risks than benefits as a COVID-19 treatment. The largest study done to date found that it brought no measurable benefits in treatment of the disease, and that patients who were treated with COVID-19 died at a higher rate than those who were not. Nevertheless, the president keeps pushing it. Several of the president's tweets were deleted by Twitter because they violated its terms of service in spreading, quote, COVID-19 misinformation. Now, sources within the White House told the New York Times that one of the causes of frustration that the president had with Dr. Anthony Fauci was that the president was jealous that Dr. Fauci had thrown out the first pitch of the season of Major League Baseball, and he had not. I will say that again. During a global pandemic, the President of the United States is undermining the nation's top epidemiologist, reportedly because he is jealous that Dr. Fauci got to play with a ball that he did not get to play with. So that is where we are today on July 28th, 2020. Again, I am Alan Piper, now the senior politics producer. We are expecting the President of the United States at any moment. He was scheduled for 5 p.m. He is running late. That is not actually something that is unique to this president. Most presidents do run late. They tend to be very busy. Although it does seem clear that this president spends more of his time watching cable news and tweeting about the news than most presidents do. Well, actually, especially measurably in terms of the tweets, more than any president has done. We'd like to use this time to try to answer your questions. And so if you would tweet them at me at apiper13, I will do my best with the help of our team to pull them. Also, if you type them in the comments on Facebook, we will try to answer them there. Now, President Trump has been a strong proponent of hydroxychloroquine. He shocked the world by claiming at an event recently that he had been taking it himself, not at the direction of White House doctors, but because a person wrote him a letter, a person that he bragged he had never heard of, wrote him a letter claiming to be a doctor and suggesting that it would be a good thing for him to try. So that is where we are. That is the basis upon which the President of the United States seems to be making medical advice available to the public. Now, this is not the only medically dangerous claim that the President has made. He very famously, on April 23rd, suggested that people could use disinfectant, that people could be injected with disinfectant as a treatment for COVID-19. It was following ridicule over this suggestion that he stopped holding daily coronavirus briefings until rebooting them this month. Now, studies have shown that hydroxychloroquine seems to be ineffective against the virus and is potentially lethal. While Trump and his former fixer Michael Cohen have financial ties to two companies that make the drug, the president has denied that this is a factor in his promotion of it. And since we have not seen the president's tax returns, he has hidden them. In fact, he is currently engaged in a furious legal battle to prevent those tax returns from being made public. We cannot know if the president has a large financial stake in the manufacturers of these drugs, or if it is simply minimal. Michael Cohen was paid, I'll check on the exact amount, perhaps Shelby can look it up, I believe it was a 6 or 7 figure sum by a manufacturer of the drug, ostensibly to offer access to the President of the United States, though that drug manufacturer has denied that they sought any undue access. In June, the FDA announced that it was pulling its emergency authorization of hydroxychloroquine as a COVID-19 treatment, citing that it is, quote, unlikely to be effective in treating COVID-19 for the authorized uses. Recent studies found that the drug causes more risks than benefits to patients, including potentially deadly side effects and serious heart rhythm problems. Nevertheless, the Trump administration has continued its experimental administration of this drug to veterans at the VA. I believe that Shelby is indicating that Michael Cohen was paid over $1 million by one of the companies that makes hydroxychloroquine. 1.2 million, it seems. Now, it is hard to tell what they expected to get in return. It is hard to tell if any of this money reached President Trump or what arrangement could have been made there. Michael Cohen has been proven guilty of financial shenanigans that he claims were done at the direction of Donald Trump. Again, Donald Trump has, in breaking with the tradition of all presidents since the Watergate era, the president has refused to make his tax returns public or available. We have very little insight into his finances. We do not know where his sources of income come from. We do not know if he is indeed a rich man, if he claims, if he is heavily indebted. We don't know. None of these things do we know because the president has not demonstrated the transparency that all presidents and virtually all presidential candidates have shown for roughly half a century. Again, if you're just tuning in, I am NowThis senior politics producer, Alan Piper. We are expecting the President of the United States at any moment. He seems to be running roughly 20 minutes late at this time. I just received an alert. Let me see if there is more information. Okay. We received a 2-minute warning 5 minutes ago. So the president is now 3 minutes late following his initial 20 minutes late. Again, that is not a criticism. Virtually all presidents are late. I see the president now, so the team and I will attempt to fact check him in real time.
Thank you very much. Today, my administration has taken a momentous step toward achieving American pharmaceutical independence. Very, very big step. A focus of our campaign to bring America's critical supply chains and medical manufacturing back to the USA. We've been working on this for a long time. This is a core of our strategy to protect our people from the horrible China virus. Should have never happened, should have never been here. They should have stopped it.
Again, it is not a China virus. China has, viruses have no nationalities. It is a global virus. If any country were to claim it, it would be the United States because we have the most cases of it. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has lately labeled it the Trump virus because our nation has uniquely failed to contain it as compared to virtually all advanced nations.
Act fair trade deals and bring our industries back home where they belong. When the China virus landed on our shores, it became clearer than ever before that restoring American manufacturing is a core matter of national security. We must never be reliant on a foreign nation for America's medical or other needs, and that includes many other needs. I just want to say that Pfizer just announced a little while ago that they're combining phase 2 and phase 3 trials, and the vaccine looks like it's really heading in a very rapid direction, a very positive direction. First time that's happened, and they're many months ahead of any other trial. There's never been anything like it. So it's the fastest ever, and to me, it's very exciting. Today, I'm proud to announce one of the most important deals in the history of U.S. pharmaceutical industries. My administration has reached a historic agreement with a great American company. You remember this company? It's called, from the good old camera age, the old days, to begin producing critical pharmaceutical ingredients. It's called Kodak. And it's going to be right here in America. So I want to congratulate the people in Kodak. They've been working very hard. Members of my administration are present in Rochester right now, Rochester, New York, good place. And they're trying to finalize this groundbreaking deal, and they will be announcing this deal. I want to thank Governor Andrew Cuomo and his representatives. We've worked really well together on this deal. It's a big deal. It's a great deal, and a great deal for New York and a great deal for Kodak.
The president blows hot and cold when it comes to Governor Cuomo. He has repeatedly attacked Governor Cuomo and has called the governor's efforts to get the virus under control in New York ridiculous. But he has alternately praised Cuomo. Here in New York, we early became the global epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. But through aggressive public health policy, the New York has actually succeeded in flattening the curve. while 42 states are currently seeing a surge of the virus, and it has been worse in the states that President Trump has given the most praise to for opening early.
It's a great name when you think of it. Such a great name. Was one of the great brands in the world. Then people went digital and Kodak didn't follow. But now under very extraordinary leadership, they are following. And they're doing something that's a different field, and it's a field that they've really hired some of the best people in the world to be taking care of that company and watching that company, watching over it. But it's a breakthrough in bringing pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the United States. Under this contract, our 33rd use of the Defense Production Act. Remember when you were saying, I didn't use it enough, I didn't use it enough? And now you heard it's the 33rd use. We don't talk about it all the time. We used it, and we used it as a little bit of a threat, frankly, with certain companies that weren't doing as we...
Okay, President Trump's claims regarding the Defense Production Act are really baffling. He suggested that he used it as a threat. The Defense Production Act is actually fairly simple. It says that in an emergency for the defense of the United States, the president can order companies to make products that the country needs for its defense. It's not a punishment. It's good for the companies. The companies get paid by the U.S. government for the product, and it basically just makes it possible to coordinate at a federal level and move swiftly to produce items that are needed. Early on in this crisis, governors of both parties across the nation called on the president to invoke the Defense Production Act, to have personal protective gear, to have ventilators, to have tests made and mass-produced. Governor Cuomo said that any company, any clothing apparel company, has the ability to make personal protective gear, to make masks, to make gowns, but it's difficult for them to just, on a haphazard basis, out of the goodness of their heart, suddenly decide to do that. It works best if the President of the United States says, hey, clothing company, make some protective gear. They called on him, they begged him to do this, and he wouldn't do it. And to date, the implementation of the Defense Production Act has been minimal. And even though drastic shutdowns bought the nation some time, that time was not used to stockpile massive inventories of PPE, and we are again seeing shortages in our nation's hotspots.
Through the Defense Production Act and other authorities, we have invested more than $3 billion in our nation's industrial base. We've contracted with companies such as Ford, General Motors, Philips, and General Electric to produce more than 200,000 ventilators by the end of this year, nearly 7 times more than we would ever do in a typical year. We've contracted with Honeywell, 3M, O&M, Halyard, Moldex, and Lidl to increase U.S. production of N95.
It is a startling boast. The president just boasted that the U.S. is producing 7 times as many ventilators as would be produced in a normal year. We are having more than 7 times as many people need ventilators. 4.3 million Americans have been sickened by this disease. An increase, a 7-fold increase of the production of ventilators is not a large number.
Gowns in America with American fabric, which makes a lot of our businesses happy that produce the fabric. We have 13 million reusable gowns in the stockpile, and we'll continue to grow that number to 72 million this fall, which is a rapid escalation indeed. We made major investments in new rapid point-of-care tests. So we have, there's nothing like the rapid point where you get your answer in 5 minutes to 15 minutes to maybe 20, 25 minutes.
Well, most people do not have access to the rapid response tests, and the testing The rollout of testing in the U.S. has been, according to the consensus of public health authorities, a disaster. That we began testing far later than any other countries were doing. And even now we are performing more tests than any other country, but we have not built up the testing infrastructure so that we can process all of these tests. And in our nation's hotspots, people who are getting tests are having to wait up to 2 weeks to get the results of the test, which makes it essentially not helpful information. By the time they get a result that says, no, you don't have the disease, they may have it. They may have gotten it since then. Or they may have been, if they do have it, they may have been exposing other people to it because they could not afford to be quarantining in doubt for 2 weeks. It is startling that the U.S. has not used the time that was bought by the shutdowns to prepare for this moment of new surges.
Mobilized. It's been fully set up. A very, very talented general is in charge, and when we have that vaccine, it will be discharged and taken care of. It'll be a very, very rapid process all over the country, and perhaps we'll be supplying a lot of the vaccine to other parts of the world like we do with ventilators and other things that we all of a sudden have become very good at making. When the China virus struck our nation, we mobilized the entire government and the private sector to acquire, source, and deliver life-saving supplies.
All right, well, it is not the China virus. You can call it the U.S. virus, you can call it the Trump virus. It is not the China virus. The name of it is COVID-19, which is what I will call it. And it is simply false to say that the U.S. government mobilized its full resources. The president has been saying during this press conference that he has used the full power of the Defense Production Act. He has never used the full power. He has never used it sweepingly. He has used it individually with companies. Even though the New York Times reports that he has used it literally hundreds of thousands of times over the course of his administration to get military needs met, including securing military equipment, missiles, body armor, and drones. There has not been any widespread use of it in this case. He waited until March 13th to declare a national emergency, even though we know that intelligence had been warning of this threat since November, even though the World Health Organization had declared a global health emergency some 6 weeks earlier, and never did the president fully, widespread, get all of U.S. manufacturing on board. He talks about bringing back manufacturing jobs. This could be such a great boon for manufacturing. We could see the sort of manufacturing boon that we saw during World War II, when the entire nation's industry was mobilized to face a national security threat. The president has refused to do that.
It's because ventilators are hard to build and hard to get. This is just the beginning. In the coming months, we will continue the largest onshoring campaign in American history. We will bring back our jobs, and we will make America the world's premier medical manufacturer and supplier. That's what's happening already. It's been happening now for quite some time. We're seeing improvements across the major metro areas and most hotspots. You can look at large portions of our country. It's corona-free, but we are watching very carefully California, Arizona, Texas, and most of Florida. That's starting to head down in the right direction.
That is absolutely not true. The president just said that most of the nation is corona-free. The virus is surging in 42 states. He has just said that the numbers are going down in California, Texas, and Florida, and the reverse is true.
In cases in both metropolitan areas because of what's been going on, and we, as you know, have done an excellent job of watching over Portland and watching our courthouse where they wanted to burn it down. They're anarchists. nothing short of anarchists, agitators.
Okay, the president is misrepresenting the situation in Portland. It is striking. The way the president of the United States talks about anti-racism protesters reminds me of the way the campaigns that were done in the 1940s and 50s to scare people away from marijuana and suggest that cannabis would cause rampant looting and burning of our streets. So the vast majority of protests throughout the nation, including in Portland, have been peaceful protests. Portland's protests have had some instances of chaos. Most of the reported instances that Fox News highlighted as instances of violence in Portland were actually instances of spray-painted graffiti, which at worst can be described as a public nuisance, certainly not an act of violence. The handful of actual acts of violence that have occurred in Florida were, occurred in Portland were limited to one block and were decreasing before the president ordered federal troops in against the will of local authorities. The president has falsely claimed that Portland and Oregon asked for these troops. The governor of Oregon said that is not true. She wants them gone. The mayor of Portland said that is not true. He wants them gone. The attorney general of Portland has sued to try to get these troops out of there. The people that the president refers to as sick people, as anarchists, as agitators, are again predominantly peaceful protesters. The president condemned a wall of moms, literally moms, mothers, who went into Portland to stand as a line of defense against the federal stormtroopers. The president called them a scam. He suggested that they were not female. This seemed to be some sort of transphobic insult. And then, following the moms, in came dads with leaf blowers. Then came veterans, a wall of veterans who came to defend the peaceful protesters in Portland. The federal stormtroopers have been escalating the tensions. Violence has increased since they arrived, and they have been widely filmed committing acts of violence, beating protesters. A veteran had his hand broken by stormtroopers' batons. People have been scooped up off the streets and thrown into vans with no arrest warrants, with no information about why they were being arrested, and no information about who was taking them away, so that there was no way to know if they were being arrested by federal agents or kidnapped by random militarized thugs. And we released a video just yesterday that showed a woman being pinned on the ground as witnesses said her head was bleeding, and she protested that she could not breathe. She was taken away, and the sheriff of that county does not know where she was taken because these troops do not answer to local authorities.
Best for the people. I want to do what's best for the people. I want to do what's best for the economy because that means jobs and lots of good things, all right?
What Senate Republicans put forward, sir? What do you make of what Senate Republicans put forward?
Mr. President, two questions quickly. First, can you clarify your position on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine after you retweeted a video making claims that it is effective?
I wasn't making claims. It's recommendations of many other people, including doctors. Many doctors think it is extremely successful. The hydroxychloroquine, coupled with the zinc and perhaps the zithromycin. But many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think it's become very political. I happen to believe in it. I would take it. As you know, I took it for a 14-day period, and I'm here, right? I'm here. I happen to think it works in the early stages. I think frontline medical people believe that too, many. And so we'll take a look at it. But the one thing we know, it's been out for a long time, that particular formula, and that's essentially what it is, the pill,
So the president is spreading misinformation about hydroxychloroquine. Again, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. This treatment is approved for use of certain conditions, including malaria, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis. It has not been approved for use for COVID-19. The FDA had temporarily given experimental approval and then rescinded it when the largest studies done showed that it posed no health benefit for COVID-19 patients and actually appeared to increase the risk of death. Again, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. Do not start taking this drug because the President of the United States says that he thinks it is a good idea.
There was a woman who was spectacular in her statements about it, that she's had tremendous success with it. And they took her voice off. I don't know why they took her off, but they took her off. Maybe they had a good reason, maybe they didn't, I don't know. I can only say that from my standpoint, and based on a lot of reading and a lot of knowledge about it, I think it could have a very positive impact in the early stages. And I don't think you lose anything by doing it other than politically.
You can lose your life from using it. It poses severe health risks. It can cause, in many patients, cardiac arrhythmia or cardiac arrest. It has potentially lethal drug interactions with drugs used to treat diabetes.
Well, I don't even know what his stance is on it. I was just, he was at the task force meeting a little while ago. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci. It's sort of interesting. We've listened to Dr. Fauci. I haven't always agreed with him, and that's, I think, pretty standard. That's okay. He did not want us to ban put up the ban to China.
That is false. The president's health team did support his travel restrictions from China, but they were not a ban. And I'm not going to take the time to fully explain the situation with his false statements about the China travel ban.
A lot of what he said. So, it's interesting. He's got a very good approval rating, and I like that. It's good. Because remember, he's working for this administration. He's working with us, John. We could have gotten other people. We could have gotten somebody else. It didn't have to be Dr. Fauci. He's working with our administration. And for the most part, we've done pretty much what he and others, Dr. Birx and others who are terrific, recommended. And he's got this high approval rating. So why don't I have a high approval rating with respect, and the administration, with respect to the virus? We should have a very high, because what we've done in terms of, we're just reading off about the masks and the gowns and the ventilators and numbers that nobody's seen, and the testing at 55 million tests. We tested more than anybody in the world. I have a graph that I'd love to show you. Perhaps you've seen it, where we're up here and the rest of the world is down at a level that's just a tiny fraction of what we've done in terms of testing. So it sort of is curious. A man works for us, with us very closely, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, also highly thought of, and yet they're highly thought of, but nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all. Go ahead.
Could I just ask you also, DHS?
I just want to add the context that 4.3 million Americans have become sick. Nearly 150,000 have died. Tens of millions are out of work. And the president is complaining that he is not popular enough. That seems to be, we can't know what's going on in his heart, but in his public statements, in his time spent on Twitter, he seems to be far more focused on whether he's getting the credit he thinks he deserves than in protecting Americans' lives or consoling the 150,000 families who are currently grieving.
I did 3 days ago with doing tremendous prescription drug price reductions. Tremendous. It could be over 50%, whether it's favored nations clauses or anything else. I mean, it's tremendous numbers we're talking about. You go to some countries and they'll sell like a pill for 10 cents, and in the United States it costs $2. And it's the same basic factory. It's the same everything. The United States bears the cost of all of these low prices that you see all over the world, where people go to Canada to buy a prescription drug from the United States. Not going to happen with me. It's not going to happen with me. So, John, I think one of the exciting things, got very little coverage, and that's okay, but the people understand it. I think we will be reducing prescription drug prices by massive amounts, numbers that have never been done before. Other thing, in 51 years, we got, as you know, last year, drug prices came down. First time in 51 years that they came down. Now, with what I signed last week, I think that drug prices can come down by numbers like 50% and even greater in certain instances.
But if I could come back to where I originally started, are you still considering a path to citizenship for current DACA recipients?
We are going to make DACA happy and the DACA people and representatives happy, and we're also going to end up with a fantastic merit-based immigration system. Please.
Yeah, on the drug pricing, you had said that pharmaceutical representatives would be here today for a meeting to talk about bringing drug prices down or to negotiate. That meeting was canceled. Why?
I didn't know a meeting was canceled. Oh, a meeting with the drug...
You said there would be a meeting today with drug companies.
Well, I said there would be a meeting, a meeting sometime this week, yeah. They want to meet. I mean, I don't know that it was canceled. They want to meet. I thought the meeting was actually scheduled for tomorrow.
We will see,
I thought the meeting was scheduled tomorrow. Sorry about the dates, but I see how upset you are by it.
On the
Go ahead,
FBI
please, Bloomberg.
headquarters, sir, on the FBI
Bloomberg, Mr.
headquarters.
Bloomberg. You look like Mr. Bloomberg. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I
Would
think
you
you look
support
much
a
better,
temporary extension of supplemental unemployment aid if the deal that they're hashing out in Congress isn't completed by the end of this week?
We'll do something. We're going to take care of the people. Yeah, it's a good question. We're going to take care of the people.
The woman that you said was a great doctor in that video that you retweeted last night said that masks don't work and there is a cure for COVID-19, both of which health experts say is not true. She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious.
Well, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but I can tell you this. She was on air along with many other doctors. They were big fans of hydroxychloroquine, and I thought she was very impressive in the sense that from where she came, I don't know which country she comes from, but she said that she's had tremendous success with hundreds of different patients, and I thought her voice was an important voice, but I know nothing about her.
Masks don't work.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Last week you said
Go ahead.
masks. Last week, well, real quick. Last
Okay,
week you said
thank you
masks
very much,
Mr.
everybody.
President.
Thank you.
On the COVID relief bill, you said masks do work, Mr. President. So is
You
that
said your retweets get you in trouble. Don't you think you should vet them?
So that was President Trump's press conference today. He was confronted with the fact that a supposed doctor whom he cited as having expertise in demonstrating the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine, that same doctor has also said that alien DNA is used in making medicines. The fact of the matter is, and I cannot stress this strongly enough, the medical evidence does not support the use of hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for COVID-19. So that is where we are today. Now, today's press conference was focused largely on the president boasting about his use of the Defense Production Act and suggesting that we have all of the supplies that we need now. Last week, a top FEMA official testified that states suffering from the current surges could have severe PPE shortages, saying that the country isn't, quote, out of the woods yet, and while the U.S. has more face masks, gloves, and other PPE now compared with 2 months ago, a surge in demand in states with growing hospitalizations could cause shortages, according to FEMA Administrator Pete Gaynor. He called the lack of PPE a national security issue, saying, quote, PPE and life-saving equipment is just as important as building an aircraft carrier. We need to have that capacity here in the United States. We cannot rely on peer competitors to manage our destiny. Now, because the President of the United States on March 16th in his call with governors, said that for all of this equipment, they were on their own. That set off chaos in the U.S. That put states bidding against other states to get equipment. That put 50 states in competition with each other, and that drastically drove up the costs of supplies. There are fundamentally advantages to having a nation. President Trump has often used the phrase, either we have a country or we don't. In his approach to the coronavirus, he's taken the position of not having a country. Instead, having a random assembly of 50 states all left to their own devices to muddle it out between themselves. And what happened as a result is money was wasted, and more importantly, lives were wasted. Now, the president was not asked today about the accusations that he turned a blind eye to intelligence showing that Russia was paying bounties for U.S. troops to be killed by the Taliban. The president has repeatedly dodged this question. He spoke to President Putin just this week, and he has not been asked if the issue was discussed. This is the president who promised to put America first. Now, we didn't get to all of your questions, and I'm not going to be able to get to too many of them now. If you'd like to try to ask some questions, you can tweet them at me at apiper13, and I will try to respond to you on Twitter or the next time we do one of these fact checks. But Gabriel, I will answer your question you asked because it's very pertinent to one of the top topics at hand today. You asked, does the president have the authority to fire Fauci? Technically, no. Under federal law, President Trump doesn't have the power to directly fire Fauci and remove him from government. But the president could try ordering his political appointees to dismiss Fauci, but that can be a time-consuming process. But the president certainly has the ability to limit the ability of Dr. Fauci to do his job. And it is worth noting that Dr. Fauci has not been allowed to speak at an event with the president since he contradicted the president on April 22nd. In that April 22nd briefing, President Trump repeatedly asserted the opinion that it was likely that there would be no more risk of coronavirus in the fall, or that if there was any, it would be very minimal. And Dr. Fauci said unequivocally, we will have coronavirus in the fall. It appears that Dr. Fauci was correct and the president was incorrect, but we have not had the opportunity for Dr. Fauci to speak again in the president's presence publicly since then. That was April 22nd. Now, in the time that the president was speaking today, I just want to double check on a number. Roughly 600 Americans have died from the coronavirus. The president repeatedly, throughout the months of January, February, March, and even recently, claimed that this disease would just go away miraculously. At one point, he promised that the number of cases would be very close to zero. Nearly 150,000 Americans have died to date. And tragically, basic preventive measures, such as wearing a mask or social distancing, have become politicized, largely because this president refused to publicly wear a mask and publicly, repeatedly downplayed the importance of masks, even suggesting in a Wall Street Journal interview that people who wore masks might be doing it as a protest against him, which naturally led to people who want to show their support of him believing that they could do that by not wearing masks. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I had the support of multiple producers, all working from home, including Maddie Green, Alex Rabinowitz, and Shelby Backlin. Wherever you are watching from, please stay safe. Please take care of the people that you love, and please do not pass up the opportunity to let the people you love know how much you love them. We will get through this thing together. For NowThis, I am Alan Piper. Thank you, and good night.